Hi, Erin. Welcome back.
Thank you. It has been a long time.
Yeah. What I saw is that you are Red Hatter,
I am, as of last September. Yeah.
but you are at IBM, and Red Hat is now IBM. So what is it? What you did? You just
It was like a sliding sideways, but very much, it's like starting over at a different company without losing 21 years of experience. So
okay.
it's like I've been at Red Hat since it was born, basically.
You were at Red Hat. Wait a sec.
I'm just saying
okay.
They still count my previous 21 years, even though I'm new at Red Hat. So it's
okay.
Red Hat is it's very much its own thing. Like
yeah.
it's still very much its own entity, and I am there, but it's not like I'm there as a new hire.
Okay. And why you did it?
A bunch of us went over kind of together. So
okay.
we have a couple projects that we're working on or have been working on with Red Hat for a long time. And because we were coming together, there were a few things where some people merged or went across so that they could consolidate who was working on certain things. So it was a few of us that went over. I was probably the outlier in that bunch, but that's business as usual for me. I'm almost always an outlier.
Yeah, exactly. So, this really surprised me because I thought, you are like IBM fangirl. So
IBM was very, very good for me. I had a lot of positive experiences there, but I'll be honest, I was also the chain shaker, the rebel, the one that didn't quite fit in the box. And so on one hand, they liked that I did that. But on the other hand, it got kind of tiring to always be the one that doesn't quite fit. And I'll be honest, being at Red Hat it's like hand in glove. It feels really nice.
Okay.
For me.
You might be not as easy to work with. You know why? Because I saw your presentation about how is actually to pronounce that Micrometer. You pronounce it differently.
Micrometer. Yeah, micrometer. It's because we're used to microservices.
And micrometer is completely wrong? Or is there anyone in the UK or US could pronounce it micrometer?
I think the way you would do it is if you look at the noun, that is the instrument you use to measure.
Okay.
There is a device called a micrometer. And that's how you say it.
Okay, yeah. Micrometer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was I watched the presentation, the entire presentation J4K about micrometer. How to pronounce that?
Micrometer.
And why I did it, because we had a brief chat and I said you hate the annotations for metrics. And
I have a strong bias, yes.
Yeah, and I was curious about that, so I watched your presentation. I understand a little bit why you are the rebel, because you are, I think, how to call it, strong opinions loosely hold, right? So, right?
I am malleable. Yeah, I totally learn, but when I have made up my mind about something, I am not shy about saying what my opinion is, for sure. But that's not to say that none of my opinions are ever set in stone. I always learn. Everybody learns. So
okay, yeah, exactly. So before we start with the matrix. Have you ever had the IBM ThinkPad, the laptop?
Yes.
Because why I remember that. So if you switch from IBM to Red Hat, so I thought, okay, IBM is a nice company, and I thought, why I like IBM actually, and the IBM ThinkPad was my dream machine. I always wanted to have one, and I got one. I had a couple of them until one broke, and I had to buy Apple because the IBM Germany couldn't deliver a replacement machine on time. So I said, okay, then I switched to Apple. But this was like remarkable machine. So I had the 31P with the docking station.
Yeah.
And I never could understand why Apple never had a docking station, because they're fiddling with the cables. I say, this is like Stone Age. And the ThinkPad was way better, and they had lots of batteries. I had batteries everywhere, so I was huge ThinkPad fan. So I wanted to ask you about your relation to ThinkPads.
Yeah, when I haven't used one in a long time because I switched to Mac. Mm-hmm. Actually, I switched to when was that? When Liberty was born. When we were first working on Liberty, I actually bought my own Dell laptop because I could get a quad core. So the ThinkPads at the time that we were getting were all still dual core. And I wanted something that would really behave oddly, like much more stuff going on at the same time. So I could tell if we were breaking things.
My another strategy was to buy Alienware back then. I remember. You know Alienware?
Yeah, I did. I don't know why I didn't get Alienware. Yes, it was. I remember. I just don't remember why at the time I didn't get Alienware. I had my little purple Dell. I was super happy with it. It was so terrifically cute, and we had a great relationship. I don't know what happened to that laptop though. It is definitely gone. But I don't remember either. That's interesting. Oh, I gave it to my sister. That's what happened. Anyway, that's why I don't remember where it went. But it was a great machine until I don't remember. I don't know. I needed to get something else, or I got a Mac for work or something, and then I got it all set up because and it went off to my sister and lived another few years because she does way less intense things with it. But it was cute. It was a cute machine.
Okay.
Alienware, I think, was too heavy or something. Like I was traveling a little bit, and this thing, it was a quad core. It could do all the stuff I wanted. It wasn't outrageously expensive, and it worked really well. And I ran Gentoo on it. That was when I was still running Gentoo Linux.
Okay. On my ThinkPad, I always had, the battery, which was a little bit larger than the usual one, and it was very heavy. So I know the weight was never an issue for me because it was heavy like hell, everything with ThinkPad related. And okay, now we clarified that. So what are you doing at Red Hat right now?
I'm working on Quarkus mostly.
Yeah. I saw actually you somehow you're related to my issue, what I did with the Q namespace, right?
Yes, I did help to fix it. That issue is interesting because way back, it's the kind of thing, it's like when Liberty was born, I wrote the service that resolved all possible paths. And the policy when Liberty was created was, I don't care who you are, what layer of code you're writing, you will not resolve a path yourself. You will call this service and it will do all the path things for you, because we had symbols and all kinds of stuff that would resolve, and we would normalize it and make sure everything was sane. And do not create a path yourself. Always ask.
This is API gateway what you did, right? This was the
sort of. Yeah. I mean, Liberty is at the core. Like Liberty is OSGI declarative services based on it. It's dynamic injection of services, whatever. But anyway, it was like you were supposed to use this one service because it would resolve whatever symbols or whoever, whatever, and it would give you a path back. And so with Quarkus, they don't have that kind of thing. And so when it was like a competing requirements thing, right? They had a way for people to configure a lot of paths, and then they had some people saying, well, I would like to namespace these extension provided URIs so that I can secure them differently. I was like, okay, great. Yeah, we could totally do that. And we're like, well, and we'll try to make a nice redirect. And you could see it didn't work very well. And we went, and it wasn't for, it was not like due to any one person's sloppiness. It's like you had organic growth of a code base, and you had in code, Vertex always wants all of its anything you create a router with has to start with a /. Right.
By the way, we should clarify to the listeners what happened. So, just for your information, what happened to me was I do the AHEX TV show, which was actually now, but it was last month's show, and someone asked a question about metrics, and I say sure. Before I explain too much, I would just fire up Quarkus and I show how it works. So I fired up Quarkus, and what I did, Quarkus updated because why not? And then I did, my curl localhost 8080 metrics thing, and nothing happened. And I say, it always works. This is just, why not now? And then localhost 8080 health, nothing works. It's okay. And what I never did, curl -y. So I would see the redirect, or -l. And then I say, okay, it somehow doesn't work, but the endpoint is available. And then someone in the show just said to me /Q. I say, what is Q? QAnon, or what is it, right? What is Q? And I say, okay, I don't know. I say, sorry, I have no idea what happened. Something broke. And then the next time I upgraded some services to my clients and tried them, also doesn't work. So okay, what is going on? And then I found out with the redirect. And no, the next problem was in our pipeline, already system tests stopped working. It was healthy, but it didn't work. And what I do in my system tests, I use the JAX REST client, and I test the health and the metrics. So I perform some stress tests, and I say, okay, this and why I get, because I expected 200, and I saw expected 200, you got 301. And what I thought is that the load balancer in the cloud is overloaded. And for unknown reason, he tries to redirect me somewhere else. I said, but it never behaved that way. What's going on? I never would thought this is fault of Quarkus. And then I found it out. I said, okay, this is just not as should to be. And just I tweeted about that. And then a long conversation started. And then Max asked me to create an issue. And then the issue was very popular. Then I saw, that you are dealing with it. So what's the situation right now? Is this queue going to be removed, or is optional, right?
The queue is still going to be there, and there are still convenience redirects for it. So that part hasn't changed, because we had a lot of people saying we want this stuff together, which is it's almost exactly what Spring does with Actuator, right? Their stuff is all in the Actuator bubble. So it's a similar concept, and that part stayed. But what we did do was make all the configuration attributes more consistent, more obvious, and we made sure that all permutations still work.
Okay.
So if you go and set your endpoint in your configuration and say, I want metrics at /metrics, it will show up at literally the root /metrics. Always.
But now Q is always there. So Q is the default, right?
Q is the default for non-app endpoints.
Also for metrics and health?
Metrics, health, Open API, the dev console, right? There's a whole collection of things that are in that bucket. But now we did some things so that it's easier for you to take one of those things and put it somewhere else, or to put the whole bucket somewhere else. And so, chasing all of that through and making sure that it works consistently and obviously and
but it's still, I'm not very happy with it, because I'm using, OpenLiberty, Payara, Helidon, and Quarkus. And now I've always remembered that Quarkus is different, and this is what I don't like at all. But how it is.
Yeah, right? we had it's one of those things. We had enough people asking for how they could secure or isolate those endpoints from the rest of their application, that it does end up being a bit of a tension between what MicroProfile did, which was to basically assign these to some notion of an absolute path, and what Spring, for example, does, right? Which is it allows there to be an entire security model for all those Actuator endpoints. So it's we at least tried to make sure that if you don't want it to do that, it's easy to make it not do that, and it will behave consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to know it, no problem. And now I remember, if there's nothing, I always know to the I, and then I will remember. So for me, it's not a problem, but still a little bit annoying, because OpenLiberty is fine with that, right?
Yes, OpenLiberty is interesting. I don't know how Payara or anything are internals wise, but OpenLiberty is interesting because all of the management endpoints are outside of the application space anyway. And so how they manage that internally is really cool and interesting and different, and makes things like this easier.
Okay. So you are working now on Quarkus.
Yes.
You like Quarkus?
Yeah. For now, I actually I did not expect to be a fanboy, girl, thing, whatever. I know Spring well, I know Liberty well. I didn't expect to suddenly be like, I am not really going to ever start another Java application without just using Quarkus, but that's kind of where I am at this point. Like, everything else, even Liberty to me now, is heavier. Yeah. Like, in terms of how much stuff you have to write around it, or config files you have to create, or all of the nitty little 80 billion things. Like Quarkus just doesn't have any of that. When I wrote my monster application, which is the example I started to use to really bash on application metrics, I was going to write one with Liberty, and I just don't want to. It's terrible. like, is my baby. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to it. Terrible.
I would say
but
this is different. I mean, OpenLiberty and Payara, they are fine, and Quarkus is different. I like Quarkus a lot, but for different reasons.
It's more like, for me, it's like I don't want to have to make the application config, and like there's just more steps involved that I'm kind of done. I'm like I'm over it. I don't know how else to describe it. I didn't expect to have this kind of reaction.
One thing what I don't like at Quarkus is the amount extensions I have to create over and over again in the project. And in OpenLiberty, there was one thing which we talk about. This was the beginning. Also, I had already the discussion with Mr. Alistair.
Alistair.
Yeah, Alistair. At the beginning, he wanted to have 50 different modules. Like, no, I just would like to have my Java E and MicroProfile.
Oh, I mean, it would be easy enough at this point to create effectively meta extensions.
Yeah.
But this
is what I'm missing, because in all my projects, what I have to do is I have to add, everything which is small array inside. So I get my MicroProfile support. So I have to do it. I know it already out. There is a metrics, open API, and health, and the REST. REST Easy doesn't have the small array in it, and the REST Easy client as well. So I do it in all my projects over and over again. I even create a Maven archetype to solve it for me, and most of my clients running Quarkus with MicroProfile because it's more stable,
Yeah.
All the other extensions is a little bit risky that they may change, and it moves too fast.
Yeah. I mean, it would be easy enough to make, even if you just wanted to mess around, like we could get some Quarkiverse extensions. Say if we use this, you bring in this set.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
But I would say 80% of my project Quarkus right now. So a huge amount of project is Quarkus, and I really enjoy it. And what I like the most is, all the years I've worked with Jakarta and MicroProfile, their code looks exactly the same, but it's no Quarkus. Exactly the same and half of the size. This is what's really nice. So last one thing about my ThinkPad is what I did at the end of my ThinkPad career is I got from my iPod a sticker, an Apple sticker, a white one, and the ThinkPad is black. And there, at that time, there were black MacBooks from Apple. And what I did is I stick my sticker on the on instead of the I don't know, was it IBM? No, there was no IBM logo. It was like blank. I don't know, but it was in the middle.
The ThinkPad was just in the one corner.
Yeah, exactly, in the white corner.
Yeah.
So regardless, there was mine was from magnesium. So I did it, but reversed on the back. And people at conferences came to me and say, "You cannot do this. This is Apple, and you did it wrong. It is everyone recognizes this is not Apple." And they were really annoyed that I did it. And this is what I really enjoyed. This is the hack with the Apple sticker on my black ThinkPad. And it looked almost like the MacBook from Apple, but it was actually a ThinkPad. And there were some Apple fanboys who couldn't stand it at all that I did with Windows Vista I ran back then.
Oh no!
Yeah, I had Windows Vista with Apple logo, and they just hated me for that, right? And
That's funny.
Okay, now I watched the entire session, J4K, recorded one. By the way, I got another email via the J4K, but I really don't like, to have another pre-recorded session. This was a painful experience for me because how long it took for you to record a session?
All day. It took me. Well, I had to do another one for DevNexus, and this one took me less time. And even then, with the J4K one, I missed the one I ended up sending out. Oh, I had so many takes. I was like, oh my God.
The problem with pre-recorded session is that I say, okay, now I mess it up. I have to record it again. But if it's a live session, it's just normal. And this is what I don't like, because it I recorded that, but I was not happy. It is not the quality of a workshop, and it's a lot of work.
Right.
And this is what I don't like at all. So I see
the one thing I like about it, once it's recorded, and it is the day of the conference, I love being able to be talking and asking people stuff in chat. I'm like, this is so cool. The being in two places at the same time.
But the crazy thing with J4K was you could speed up the session. You recognize that? I watched myself in the twice the speed, and I was done. And everyone watched me. It's like, what's going on here? And it's like, this is just crazy experience. And then I don't know. And then it's okay. Just like, okay. So now I watch your session, and I think we are completely compatible with our point of view. So the only difference is, when I start in a project, what I always do is in the first iterations, I actually do it right now in my project, I put the counted annotation on my JAX-RS resources just to see whether they get invoked. Because on my, for instance, right now, my project, I use my backend MicroProfile, which is Quarkus, in the cloud, just as fake, because it's not part of my task. So I focus now on web components and front end. So the backend is just there, to serve me the data, the JSON. And so I just created the counted, to test whether my web components are actually working. So this is actually a great.
Right. And I could see that. So the difference is, if you were to switch over to the Micrometer extension, for example, you wouldn't have to add your counted annotation, because you would already get out an HTTP metric that has the URI endpoint in it.
Yeah, but most of the servers did it anyway, Usually
But what my point is, you don't have to add an annotation to get an indication that your endpoint was touched.
Yes.
It happens automatically.
But the difference was, that I go to metrics/application, and I only saw my 3 counters.
That's true.
This is what this is the convenience I have, because the Payara and Jersey, they provided me the annotations forever. So I always had the data, but I got 500 counters, and I only wanted to have my counters in a dedicated space. So this is the only difference to our point of view. So I start with annotations, I add them, they are not that relevant. And the second part, which I do with annotations, then I put metered on significant resources, and I misuse this for 2 purposes. The first one is for my torture tests or stress tests. So what I usually do in a pipeline, I generate some tests. Right now, for instance, I use executor service, a very simple, so not even a framework, and to see what the server does. And then I ask the server for the metrics, and I see the throughput. So we have some configurable throughput, and this is what I also use, also key resources. And then I spend most of my time with MicroProfile metric registry. This was very similar what you did in your talk with the Micrometer, Micrometer.
You did it right, Micrometer, yeah.
Micrometer.
It's like kilometer,
Micrometer.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And this is almost the same. But what I didn't got is, why Micrometer and why not MicroProfile metrics? So I mean, for me, I still don't see the difference. Because so John said to me, I think that you are very convinced, about Micrometer. I said, okay. I still don't see it. As I watch your talk, by the way, I still don't understand the Dungeon and Dragons. What happens with the sword? Also, I tried to watch it the second time. I had no time, but it was interesting. So you try to find some anomalies with Micrometer. What I understood is that there were some specific strikes or whatever, which were not very common, and you proved that with Micrometer. This was my
What I was looking at was, so when I created that, well, there's the whole history about how I even ended up being curious about that, which is with my kids, right? But part of what I like to do, and Game on Text was our other example that we had a long time ago, where we created that text-based adventure game, right? I like making really random stuff that does not work with cut and paste examples.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I go and read about Prometheus, it will have all kinds of information in there for me to calculate HTTP throughput.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I could cut and paste it and not learn anything.
Yeah.
So I deliberately try to go to some other kind of data, some other noise, whatever, so I can get through writing PromQL, making the queries, making the graphs, so that I understand what is happening to the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? So that I'm not just, so that I'm forced to digest it because I'm doing something totally off the wall random.
Yeah.
So it was in doing that I discovered the first problem with MicroProfile metrics. There's a few of them. They fixed one of them, which is if you take their histogram type, for example, it wasn't emitting the sum.
Okay.
It was doing max, count, and the pre-computed percentiles, I think, which is a non-aggregable value that you can't use for anything else because it's relative just to inside that instance.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a sum. I couldn't calculate an average. Done. Like, I couldn't use it for my talk at DevNexus last year because it was not, I couldn't get to where I needed to go at all. Okay. So MicroProfile was like right out because they just didn't give me real data I could do anything with.
Yeah, but you could fix it, right?
Well, I did ask, and yes, they put in a fix, so now it emits the sum.
Yeah.
So you have the max and the count and the sum, and then you have all that extra pre-computed quantile percentile stuff that you can't use. But that's
this is
okay.
why some IBM colleagues didn't like you, right? Because
they love me. Don and I go way back. I have like Don Bourne, who works on the metric spec, is one of my favorite humans on the planet. He has made me laugh so hard I have had to walk out of a building to get fresh air to like try to stop hyperventilating from laughing so hard. These are wonderful humans. I love them. They understand crazy Aaron's passion, whatever, and they understand it's not personal. It's just me getting super excited. So yeah, we have great relationships. It's not, that's never been an issue. And we've talked a lot about why micrometer versus MicroProfile metrics. And part of the problem is that you have there were some data gathering snafus, which is, for example, that the histogram issue, right? Okay, they fixed that. They have a sum. The next problem is that they're only able to support Prometheus, which granted is common, but it's not the only one. And so I've seen a few places where people using Wildfly or people using other things are using Micrometer because Micrometer as an abstraction can already provides an API that does counters, gauges, distribution summaries, timers, function-based counters for observations. It already has that rich API, but it already supports Datadog and StatD and Stackdriver and Azure Monitor and a big list of backends. So it already has both the nice abstraction layer plus support for a much broader set of cloud monitoring systems. And when I think about what NP metrics would have to do to be equivalent with what Micrometer actually has, by the time they get there, it's almost too late.
Yeah, is it necessary? Because if you look at metrics, MicroProfile metrics, MP metrics, they support actually open metrics format, and this is Prometheus is just implementation. Open metrics, and maybe it is going to be merged to the open census. I think something.
I'm working with that working group now, so they're trying to figure out how the open metrics format is going to be resolved against open census, which is now open telemetry, and so they're looking at how that's going to happen. Now, yes, MP metrics can emit open metrics compatible format, but what I would look at from a micrometer perspective, for example, is writing a backend that can write to OTLP, which is open telemetry's wire format protocol. You can't do that as easily with the way MP metrics is currently written.
Yes, what I wanted to say is, for instance, if you take a look at the cloud, because this is most relevant. In my project, we have Prometheus in private clouds. Usually, this is the way to go. And in public cloud, let's say Amazon, they have CloudWatch.
Yes.
But CloudWatch understands open metrics.
Yes, it does.
And the CloudWatch is the integration point. Usually, you would plug all the providers you said into the CloudWatch. So CloudWatch would gather, your application-specific metrics via open metrics. All the technical metrics are already provided anyway by the containers in the cloud. So they are gathered through different channels. So the question is, where are the use cases where your application will emit, all the metrics directly to the providers? Usually you have the cloud between, or if
I would say that that would be my expectation also, that most people usually use Prometheus and that becomes the integration point because we use the open metrics format. That said, upon creating the micrometer extension, I got questions back immediately and 2 contributions for Azure Monitor, Datadog, Stackdriver, StatsD.
Okay.
So people are using them. So, I could say, well, it's good enough that there's Prometheus support. All I know is the community immediately asked for and or contributed additional extension, support for additional micrometer registries.
So what is the relation?
So community has spoken.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the community always speaks, I mean, regardless what you do.
Well, but it's easy for them to do, like that. It's easy for them to, like, Micrometer has this abstraction layer, and you can support multiple meter registries where each of those meter registries then deals with translating whatever those measurements are into whatever the back end wants it to be. So it could be different time units. It could be like, for the Prometheus registry, it's that meter registry that hooks up a scrape endpoint, right? It does whatever digestion to produce that the open metrics format. If you're going to Datadog, it sets up the Datadog client, or you can configure it to talk to a Datadog agent, and it does whatever conversions you need to talk most directly to Datadog, and it's the same amongst the other ones. New Relic has another one. So it's like those meter registries each handle the incoming metrics and then do whatever digestion or munging or manipulation needs to happen to group it into whatever format makes the other side happy.
So the interesting point is now, what is the relation between MP metrics and Micrometer? And I would say similar to MicroProfile fault tolerance and Hystrix back then, right?
So where it is right now and where it is going, I am not the boss of that.
No.
So I kind of know where the tendency is, but I'm not writing the spec, so I can't say. So the Micrometer extension, for example, does provide an adaptive layer so that if your application uses the MP metrics APIs, it'll work.
Yeah.
So your code won't break. Now, Micrometer and MP metrics have very different naming conventions for the metrics that come out. Mm-hmm. So you won't have application namespace versus vendor namespace, because that's not how the rest of the industry tends to name things anymore. So it tends to use much more
flat.
Exactly, flat. So it's like if you were to write your metrics using the MP metrics API and specify the names of all of your metrics directly rather than having them inferred, the values coming in and out would be the same. Right? If you specify explicitly what those IDs are, that's what you will see. If you're relying on a generation of a method name, whatever, it will come out differently. It won't have the application vendor based prefix on it. Anyway, point is, from the Micrometer extension perspective, it will still catch and handle your usage of the MicroProfile API and will write it out. I think the version of the spec that's in draft now, or at least what IBM and Red Hat are working on together, is that Micrometer the whole MP API will be written as an adaptive layer on top of Micrometer, and possibly retired. So in another couple releases, you won't have an MP API anymore for metrics. I mean, it'll be there as an adaptive layer, but the recommendation would be to go directly to Micrometer.
Will we have, the MicroProfile metrics annotations?
For as long as you want to use that API, it won't break. But so I don't think there's any notion of like deleting them. But it's I'm not sure it would be the recommended way to do things.
Okay. So the problem, what I don't understand, because I had already the chat with what I did, I created an issue of MicroProfile matrix issue, and I think you also commented on that. What I wanted to have is more scopes. So application was not enough because it was too crowded in my project. So what I would like to do is to introduce my own, how to call it, namespaces, scopes, or registries.
Right.
And the trend is the opposite, which I don't understand at all, which is great for machines. But what I always use is very similar to your story with the Dungeons and Dragons, is in my architecture, internal microservice architecture, I use Java packages, and the Java packages have business names, domain responsibilities, let's say, monsters and whatever you had, knights and whatever it comes there. And inside the packages, every package would emit its own metrics.
Right.
And every package could become later a microservice, but usually I always start with monolith because it's easier and cheaper and so forth.
Wise, very wise. Yeah. Everybody should do that. Everybody should do that.
And it's
right.
Cost savings, and so actually, so my microservice could end up having 10 such packages, which are nicely named, and the names highly depend on the business logic. And in my code reviews, what I expect is that every such package emits some meaningful metrics. At least counters what happens internally, like monsters got hit, or I don't know, something is delivered, or a fraud happened, or whatever. So just counters, nothing else. So this is most important thing. Counters, maybe gauges, but counters, start with counters. It's good enough. And it would be even nice if every such package would have an own registry. So in my metrics, if I would look at my metrics, I would see, my monsters and knights as a scope. So I can, if I'm interested in a task force or incidents or alert or whatever, I would just look on my package. I'm not interested in the noise. And what I really hate is all the technical metrics, because I had so a lot of conversation with consultants who really loved, the metrics out of the box, historics, for instance. I was really happy that it died at the end because I was, and Java user group Hamburg, and so enterprise consultants came to me and say, hey, look, we use the historics because you can create in the shortest amount of times nice dashboards and they look very professional. Say, yeah, but what is the added value? I say, okay, we don't know, but my clients like it, right? So, and I was in projects where we had lots of such dashboards which were absolutely meaningless. And what I always did in projects, I say, okay, forget about the technical stuff, garbage collectors, I don't care. They were never a problem. We should focus on just business metrics. And if you are saying everything becomes flat, this is
yes and no. So there's different ways to do what you are suggesting.
Yeah, how you would do it
if I were going to do this
Micrometer.
Exactly. If I was going to do this in Micrometer. So with the monster combat application, I had a class that I called, I don't remember, combat metrics, I think is what I called it. And I treated that as the container of all things metrics for within my package. So when I was looking at the end of encounters or whatever, they would call into this class, okay, an encounter ended or whatever ended, like, they would just call. And that way I had one class where if I needed to rename things or if I wanted to change tags, like I could make sure that my metrics collection makes sense as a whole because it was all there. So within the way Micrometer works, there's a global metrics registry. And what ends up usually happening is if I set up Prometheus, for example, Prometheus sets up its own meter registry because it does processing for it and it attaches it to the composite. And so that way, any metrics that are related anywhere else in the system, right, they go to the global registry, which comes down then into the Prometheus registry and goes out that way. You could create a composite registry per component. You could at least create that registry per submodule. And then I think you'd have to decide how or if or when those metrics should be registered higher, such that they would trickle down to a single Prometheus endpoint or to multiple endpoints. But you could literally add, remove, silence, enable, disable per unit at that point.
This is probably the job of MicroProfile metrics next, because I would expect to have a simple annotation and eject the Micrometer context, and this should happen behind the scenes. But this is
that could be.
Yeah,
that could be.
Then I'm happy, because this is what the MicroProfile metric does right now. I say add inject registry type application, and I'm happy. And what I'm lacking is application/monsters. If MicroProfile would provide me this, I would be very happy. And this would be the
that could be on top of that could easily be on top of a Micrometer API to allow you to do better CDI integration.
And then I'm happy with Micrometer, because a flat Micrometer, I don't get it at all. It will be a huge mess in enterprise project. I know it already, because no one cares about metrics at the beginning of the project. Everyone is crazy about unit testing because of code coverage. No one is paid for metrics. And
So
in business
when
projects,
you're looking at big enterprise projects, I mean, Micrometer is used for big enterprise projects, and it's not a mess. So it's not like it hasn't been field tested.
But it is field. This is like, I know that it's used in enterprise projects. The problem is this is misused in enterprise projects to emit irrelevant metrics.
Like what?
Millions of technical counters who no one cares about, because it's really hard, to separate the meaningful from meaningless metrics. So again, what I, for instance, did in, let's say, Payara. Let's switch the gears, Payara or Open Liberty, right? The vendors base metric / we never looked at that in projects. We always started with metric / application. You know what I mean? So we always were interested in our own metrics.
Right, but like, let's say with the default metrics that come out with the Micrometer extension, you could very easily turn off all of the JVM or system metrics.
You could,
if you don't look at those. But I would say that your, like, the default HTTP metrics should keep coming out, and you would aggregate those, because again, you're looking by aggregates. So you would aggregate those by the URI, which would give you which application space you're in, for example. But you already get hit, miss, error rate, whatever, aggregated by your URI.
Yeah, but this is how to call it tyranny of the default, right? I mean, it doesn't happen. So, and the cool story was in micro, as just speaking in experience from real world projects. The cool story with MicroProfile spaces, like the metric / application. From the beginning, there was separation between technical and business metrics. This is the default. And this is what I'm missing. This is the only thing. I'm not speaking that,
Right. I can definitely see that you have to add business, like if you want business
code, metrics, filter, whatever. From the beginning, I know that it is possible. Of course it is possible.
But I mean, from a monitoring perspective,
you have to do this.
Looking at health of a process, you're almost always looking from an HTTP throughput perspective, and we admit those metrics by default. You would then aggregate them based on tag. And that's how you get per service what that is. You shouldn't have to make a new counter with a different name. The name is there, you aggregate based on the URI space, and you're okay. That's how you get the information that you want.
But URI is rather boring, because if URI, you only get, the business endpoints, the business transactions. This is the entry point.
Right, I'm specifically in that case talking about the HTTP throughput.
The entire session, which I like about your talk, is what happens inside the system, the algorithms. In your case are the monsters. In my case are deliveries, some validations. This is the interesting stuff. And this is really too hard, great examples. This is why I really like your session, because about the monsters and the algorithms, exactly what it's about. It is impossible to do it. Maybe with machine learning, you can derive it from the URI and parameters, but it's almost impossible. Usually you need the application state, maybe even, some state from the database to know what's going on.
Yeah, I can follow you. And I think
the best, one of the very trivial examples, this was a GMS project with messaging. And what I said from the beginning, we will emit, if the message comes in, is the type right? Is it a poisoned message or not? And we just emitted, the basic counters, and this was golden. Because we just, switched to application and we saw, okay, we got 5 poison message, something is wrong with the type, done. If we wouldn't have the application, and we say to developers, there are no 500 metrics, and you only have to use a filter with the tag. I mean, why? This is exactly like, I don't know what to remember 10 years ago. We had to log everything. There was no best practice, and everyone logged whatever. Yeah, I'm beginning of the method ended. Beginning, there was lots of irrelevant information in the log files, and in all my task forces, the first thing we did, we deactivated the logging. We wrote a few relevant log statements, because it was impossible to handle. And I see the same happening right now in monitoring space.
Yeah, I think you and I disagree a little bit about at least that HTTP base endpoint. You and I are in agreement about the utility and importance of application space metrics. But I think from a base throughput perspective, this common line of your HTTP metrics across the board look like this. From a big SRE dashboard in the sky, you can start to see then this HTTP, they all look the same. They do have like the status code in them, the URI you can group across. Like it's a very standard way to look at HTTP traffic.
I have something for you. In my current project,
okay.
I don't have any HTTP endpoints. This is one of my current projects. Interesting one. A huge database, DB-Zoom, writes to Kafka, and everything else is Quarkus with MicroProfile reactive messaging without REST easy.
And MicroProfile reactive messaging uses Kafka, and there is already a micrometer binder for Kafka. So you will get metrics for consumer and provider,
but
consumer
I don't
and
expose,
producer, whatever.
But we don't have JAX-RS. We don't have HTTP.
Right, which is fine. There's another kind of metrics that will show up, and we're trying to keep an eye on what the OpenTelemetry community is coming out with in terms of semantic conventions for tracing and metrics around messaging, so that what we are emitting makes sense in that space. The meter binder that we're using for Kafka traffic in Micrometer, obviously it's Micrometer, so it's the same one you would get for a Spring application. So if you had Spring applications that were using Kafka and you had a Quarkus application that was using Kafka, you would be able to slice and dice all of your metrics as aggregates together to watch whatever you need to watch at a system level for message flows.
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, I'm coming from the project and you are coming from Quarkus. And your job is to expose as many metrics as possible.
Not necessarily. It's not as many as possible. And everything that we do, you can turn it off. But I am trying to make it so that the knobs at least are there, or the data is there for you to look at it. From an SRE perspective, having some consistency can help with diagnosis, because of course with metrics, you are looking at aggregate data for trends. Right? You're not looking at individual diagnostics or context-rich things. You're looking for your trend spotting. And so trying to get to common conventions so that you can put these things all together and start looking for flows or problems or things that don't align or sudden patterns that go out of whack. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. This is what you can do for sure. But if you have business metrics, your monsters, let's say, then you don't have to look always at the aggregate. You could even misuse the metrics for almost unit tests, right? Because you can say, I perform, this REST endpoint, and I know that 2 monsters should die and 1 survive. So I could just pick the counters, and this is a great resource to learn what the application is doing.
And so this is one of the reasons why I made sure that the Micrometer extension will support multiple Prometheus endpoints. So I could add a second Prometheus registry.
Yeah.
You could add multiple registries, but that basically means I can. So the way Micrometer works, you have meter registries, and then you have meter filters, which you can use to twiddle with how a meter registry behaves. So I can create a meter filter that says, like, let's say I have my one composite in the sky and I have 2 Prometheus meter registries. I can say, well, this one, I want to turn off anything that isn't just those HTTP metrics. Just deny. Nothing else goes through. So if I go to that Prometheus endpoint, I just see HTTP. That's it. On this other endpoint, I only want to see monster metrics, the end.
Yeah.
That's all I want to have come out of this one. And so then I can hit that database all the live long day, or that endpoint, and I've got the data diversified or separated, whatever the word I'm trying to look for is. So that means like the big SRE guy in the sky managing the humongous distributed system that wants to see everything consistently, he's got an endpoint. They have an endpoint they can look at that has just like the 4 things they want to see, right? It's got like the HTTP information, which has success or error, so they can get an error rate, and maybe it has something about memory, and maybe it has like 2 other things. Okay. And that's it. That's all it goes to the big sky, the big thing in the sky. And then I see whatever detailed stuff on this other endpoint.
Then what we disagree, I think, a little bit is convention over configuration. I would like to have more conventions. And I'm not interested at all in every project to create my filters from scratch, because I know exactly that in every project I will recreate my application filter over and over again. And this is what I would like to have injected, annotated, or whatever, right? So I think what we really...
Well, I mean, like getting to a place where we can say, now we have this system. We all agree that this is the system. Now, if we have this annotation, this is what comes out.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could look at that as a use case, sure.
Yeah, nice. Because for me, it's like, the MicroProfile fault tolerance is good enough. And even if Hystrix was more powerful and some implementations used Hystrix to implement fault tolerance, I didn't care at all. I just wanted, to have the functionality. And what happens behind the scenes, I'm not interested in it. From the application programmer perspective. If I would implement Quarkus, different story, but I'm application developer. And the same is with MicroProfile metrics. Right now, they're good enough. What I'm missing is more possibility to create my own registries, whatever you call it, namespaces, and they should be aligned with my packages. This is, I think, a good architecture, single responsibility principle, whatever. And what I always would like to have is also what Quarkus does. I would like to have separated my, business code from the infrastructure. Like this always was my idea. Thin wars like war and infrastructure in Quarkus is the jar in the lib folder, and technical metrics which are generic from my specific metrics. And
right.
in all my significant projects, I know right now we will do it, because all the Prometheus metrics and the Prometheus query language, PromQL, whatever, we always only did it in Kibana and Grafana on our application metrics. And the other was like, just for, let's say, firefighting, garbage collector. This came afterwards. So we always started with the business metrics, and the other metrics came later, right?
Right.
And,
right.
And
it would be interesting if you pulled up the Micrometer extension on one of your projects, mm-hmm. and we played with what a meter filter that makes you happy would look like. That would, for example, if we could figure out how to set up, I think we'd want to decide if it was an alternate endpoint that we could establish what you would set to make it so that this is your application metric focused endpoint. Like, it would be interesting to know what that would look like.
Yeah.
What would make
I would say,
what would satisfy your requirements for that?
Yeah, the requirements I think are pretty clear. So you have a Java package. So it should be possible to have a filter which just shows me my Java package. Because packages like small modules, this is what we have in Java. And inside the Java package, there are class names. So it would be nice to derive the name from the class name. And then I didn't like the idea of methods, because the method names were not very good for metrics, because they are often not named properly. They always use different names, but there should be, convention is fine. So you could derive, the name from the class, at least where it happens. And if it's possible, gauge like method would be also nice, and package. So, and this should be automated. I don't think, application developers should create any kind of filters or whatever, because why? We also not fiddling with routes in JAX-RS. I just put my annotation at path. I have already the conversation that there is an express in Node.js, and this is nice. I say, I don't care at all. I put one annotation and I'm faster than you, whatever you are doing in Node.js Express or whatever, right? So this is the same discussion. You could fiddle, all the time with your filters, but
it's more. I would like to see a filter that you come up with that's like, this is what I want. And nothing else. Like, I don't want the garbage collection metrics or JVM metrics in here. This is what I want that would make me happy.
So, I would like to have nothing. A filter which just shows what I created explicitly.
Okay.
Not eyes in projects. It's your monsters. My monster filter, monster hit the first one and night survive or something like this. This is the filter. And all the other stuff should be there, but somewhere else. So the garbage collector and HTTP, this is perfect to have it. So it's not like I don't need it, but it should be strictly separated from this stuff I'm having right now. I don't know whether you remember the JMX stuff. It was the same story,
yep.
JMX. And you could create the application-specific monitoring, which I did in some projects, but most of the people just use the generic stuff, and they thought they have a perfect observability system in place, which And I was in crucial project where, the business department at SREs observed, the diagram from the garbage collector, the behavior, and they asked me why the system not working. It looks fine. So again, because the garbage collector actually doesn't matter, right? So, I mean, we could look all the time how it behaves, but, the problem is somewhere else. And no kidding, this is like this. And what I would like to have it is strictly separated. It's okay, fine. This is the matrix Quarkus or nice Quarkus matrix transactions, whatever is valuable. But on top of that, for instance, the best would be synthetic transactions, but this is hard to implement. So that you can track, my transaction, I have a synthetic transaction and it comes back and is successful. This would be the best, but this is what I would like to see. But
I think the argument that would go for tracking synthetic transactions is going to be that's where tracing is going to end up once you get to the place where you have Splunk or other people that are supporting OpenTelemetry who are literally gathering everything. Is that they would say you would trace your synthetic transactions and that flow, including metric data, all using tracing.
Yeah, this is what also the different discussion, like why in open tracing there is no more additional data you could also put on the span. Also interesting, but I think I don't know whether you got my idea right. So my idea is I have a business packages, and I would like to have a simple way with Micrometer or not to expose package specific metrics and make
I understand
human readable way.
Human readable
way, without filter, without fiddling with whatever. Yeah, it's just, when you started with Java, 1990.
We talked about this, 1999, 7, 5, 6.
Yeah, this is exactly.
7, 8,
I started. I was in 1995 and 1997. I'm freelancer, and fiddling with all the stuff at the beginning was great, but after all the years, I just would like to have one annotations and someone else should fiddle with the stuff, right? So this is like, because it's boring. We know that it's possible, but I have to do it over again. So I'm in 3-4 projects, and I know right now I will have to use the Micrometer and create it exactly the same stuff 4 times, and this is what is boring.
I can see that.
Yeah, and MicroProfile metrics were great in this regard. And about your histogram, I never found the error, because we never went that far. This is the interesting part. In real world projects, I'm happy that developers are able to expose counters. No kidding. Regardless how crucial the project is, I have to, at least in Europe, there's obsession with unit tests. And I'll tell you why. Because management would like to see code coverage. And the easiest possible, no kidding. This is funny, but this is the sad reality. And they spend times to implement, no kidding, exception new
I know.
to get the constructor of exception covered. Recently, a few years, I observed new trend. Enums are tested. So because getters and setters, I saw frameworks, reflection frameworks, which invoked all getters and setters, to have higher code coverage, of course, to string. Very crucial to test. And if you do all the stuff, you get 80-90% code coverage. Of course, nothing is tested. And metrics completely forgotten. So what happens in reality? They say, yeah, but we have, the technical metrics. And they create very quickly a view dashboards, which looks nice, but are completely meaningless. And this is the set situation I'm in. And with the MicroProfile metrics, what I could do is, I went to a project, said metrics/application. You see empty, nothing there. Why not? Right? With the Micrometer, I already see, a huge discussion again. Should we use filter? And then what will happen? They will ask me to write some best practice documents who no one would read. And then I will make some, ideas how to create something which already exists. And this is what I can tell you. So and also, I mean, Google, Facebook, or Netflix, they are different companies, They emit all the metrics, and they gather all the metrics, and they are capable to consume the metrics because they are implementing products, and they stick with the products all the time. In projects, a little bit different, You create a projects, and you go to different projects. The project is picked up by a different company. This is like a complete different situation, right? So you don't have the time, to play with Micrometer all day long. You do it once?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found for my own use almost immediately that a counter wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And the way MP Metrics collects things, there wasn't a way to get the sum and the counter, which is useful if you want to calculate an average.
I'm with you. Yeah, this was a defect.
So
yeah.
it was just something that was insufficient. So I can see from a business application or a business need perspective that we should look as a next step. Like I can talk to Don and the MicroProfile guys about this, about how to ensure that from a CDI integration perspective, which is where I said they should focus, from a CDI integration perspective, we still have useful ways to help create a filtered set of metrics. I think it's going to be interesting to define or to assume what application metrics should be. Like I get a little nervous is the wrong word, but part of me doesn't like timing a method that's already timed, right? Your HTTP requests are already fundamentally timed.
Yeah.
So if you time an application method, if you put an @timed timer on a get method, on a get method in your app, it's already timed. It shows up under HTTP metrics with the endpoint that's being requested. It's already timed. You already know what the response was. You already know if an exception occurred. Like that is already present.
Yeah, but if the HTTP method invokes two other methods, so you won't see, the subtimes, right?
You don't see the subtypes necessarily, right? That's absolutely true. I'm just saying, like, if I'm just looking at your application path and you have a get method and you want to put a timed annotation on that unit is already timed.
Okay.
Including whatever happens within it.
Then we have
is what I'm saying.
A little misunderstanding. So I'm with you. So I wouldn't expect that your HTTP metrics should be aligned with my packages. They should stick, right. Whatever you do with the HTTP metric, they should be available somewhere else. But if I decide to put additional annotation on my method, HTTP or not, I would expect to have a filter which just shows me the method.
Right. Okay.
So this is and this.
I think you should open an issue.
Yeah.
Give me something to work with, and I can show it to Don, and I can sit down and we can figure out what it is we might want to do going forward.
But you see the point? My point, or is it completely?
No, I get it.
Okay, perfect.
I get it. I understand. How we get there is interesting. Which is more like I like dumb examples with people doing concrete things. I get really frustrated when it's a bunch of whiteboard talking, because I feel like it's really easy to end up staring at your belly button when you're just talking about a whiteboard. Yeah. Like you want the real, I don't care what app it is, you want something real so people can play with it and be like, oh, that makes sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Or that's not quite what I meant. Which is why I was just asking for you to tool around with a meter filter to see what kind of thing you would turn on or turn off or rename or retag or add a tag or remove a tag. You know what I mean? Like what kind of thing starts to shape what comes out so that it feels right or looks right.
Yeah, I would say the mandatory thing would be at least gauges and counters, because they believe they belong actually to the business code. And the timing is, I would say, nice to have. Because you are right, this is often good enough to check. I mean, there is one case where it makes sense is if you have a microservice and it talks to another service, it would be nice. What we always do, we annotate, all outgoing IO related calls with timed or something similar, because this is where the problem usually appear. So we can see, okay, this call was too slow. And from the beginning, you can expose it as Prometheus metrics. And for that purpose, it'd be, of course, nice to have, like IO metrics. This was the basic idea. I have my, my package, my component. Yeah. There's some business metrics. Then I have outgoing transactions metrics and incoming, whatever. So I could play with it.
I don't think I have a meter binder yet for MicroProfile fault tolerance, but that might be interesting to do.
Oh, this was also nice. That actually all my fault tolerance metrics appeared automatically in application scope. If they would appear in the default scope, I wouldn't be interested at all, because there are already 200, you won't even see, your own metrics. And always, it should be, how to call it, wgetable or curlable. So this is the thing. We use curl on wget all the time. And if this becomes unusable...
Do you care if it's flat text or do you care if it's JSON? If you're curling, like if it's just still a subset of the metric?
We use JSON a lot because it's more compact. Because the flat text from Prometheus was too long for me, and JSON is very compact. So just try, to right now with MicroProfile metrics and go and say accept JSON. You get one JSON object, which is short, and the Prometheus metrics is very long with all the comments, so it takes more space. But I wouldn't care at all. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, but there should be some additional value. Because my feeling is like Micrometer is like a great monitoring tool for runtime vendors and for machines.
It is a capable monitoring tool. I would say, not necessarily. Right? I mean, it has a perfectly functional, quite robust API, actually.
Yeah.
And it's taking labels, and it just doesn't have the notion of application base and vendor scopes because it wasn't built that way. It wasn't built from what's happening across the industry, the application base and vendor scope is an anomaly. It's a little off the usual beaten path. I can see easily wanting to be able to view a subset of all metrics. There's a couple different ways I can think of to do that are pretty easy. Like an easiest would be a tag. The way we adapt the MicroProfile spec right now, MicroProfile API now, is we end up with a scope as a tag. And so if you wanted to have an additional scope where you could say, I want these metrics in this envelope to be under this scope, then we could get to the place where an endpoint only emits metrics with that scope tag, which would give you your subset fairly quickly. It would just filter out and only show you the ones that matched that scope.
Yeah. The question is how nice the API is, the REST API is, right? So this is where, how to use it.
Yes, exactly. Right. And for sure. Like if you had a query parameter that said only give me back the ones that match the scope, then we're probably getting close to something that would kind of work.
The RESTful path is just great. That's the problem, If you're a /app/ whatever, this is the natural way to go, right? There's a metrics, my metrics / your metrics / this is unbeatable.
Great. I can think about how to do that. The micrometer endpoint right now doesn't do that. Because it's only listening for Prometheus.
Because I already created an issue or comment, and the answer was Spring Boot does that way. It's like, I don't care.
I think in this case, the first step was bringing in the micrometer library, that core runtime with the capabilities that it has, and making sure that worked, and getting through native builds, registry support, making Quarkus extensions, right? There's a body of work that just has to happen to get that in place so people can start understanding what's different and what's the same. And from a flexibility and capability perspective, Micrometer is already farther ahead of where MP Metrics was.
Yeah.
So now we're to the place where it's like, okay, but I would still like to be able to use, like we do have a JSON endpoint. It's not enabled by default right now, but we do have one. And I could start looking at, all right, let's turn this on. And if you start adding more things, then maybe we can figure out how to start using those scopes to bring things down. I don't know how that works once we start, like when you're not using MP metrics. Because at this point, when the micrometer extension is present, our native extensions are not going through MP metrics, so they don't have necessarily a base or a vendor scope, which is okay. If I think what we're saying is the more desired thing anyway is to have a scope that we're adding, and we want to be able to filter that. So that's what I would have to think about. Like, I don't know from a base Kafka level metrics, that's just going to be Kafka metrics. But if we want to have your application, and because you have an annotation in the application that says it's this scope, and any metrics created by any classes within that scope or in an area that have that scope, get this tag applied. And then if you go to the endpoint and you start incorporating that tag, can I filter those for you? Possibly.
Yeah. What we should be a little bit careful with Quarkus is the strength of Quarkus is actually you can very easily migrate from other runtimes to Quarkus. And what shouldn't start happen is like with the Q namespace and now Micrometer and the other stims, if you start to create a unique snowflake, I think Quarkus will lose. Because
so there's a lot of people moving over to Quarkus from Spring, and this is absolutely seamless for them because all the metric names are the same. The entire, I mean, the URI is different because instead of /actuator metrics, it's /Q/metrics, but the entire naming convention, the whole mechanism by which metrics appear is incredibly consistent.
But,
so that is a really smooth
I'm not
transition.
talking about Micrometer specifically, rather than I have lots of interest from Whitefly, Payara, Tommy, right. And this is very similar. But if Quarkus starts now to become something different, then there are no more arguments for Quarkus. Because then why not to use Spring Boot or whatever else, The strength of Quarkus is it is incredibly small and is MicroProfile compatible and parts of Jakarta E compatible, plus Spring Boot compatibility and everything else. So I think in future you should decide what is Quarkus supposed to be. Is it like?
Yeah. Well, I think the current issue around MP metrics specifically is going to be resolved because MP metrics itself is going to reorient around Micrometer.
Very good.
So it'll be a matter of time before that settles again, and it'll be okay.
Perfect.
So I think that will resolve itself, and it won't be a snowflake again. I think the question around the /Q or not, that was driven by security concerns.
Yeah, sure.
Where people want to be able to isolate those things, and there's questions about whether or not the MP specs should have allowed for that kind of namespacing.
Yeah, and yeah, sure, but it should not such problems should not accumulate, because what Quarkus does right now, it moves incredibly fast. I would say we have one release a month or even more.
Yeah, it moves fast. Yeah, it moves fast.
And if people ask me, you are criticizing Angular, which has 2 releases a year, and now Quarkus has 2 releases a month.
Well,
what my answer is, I don't care, because I don't have to use the 200 extensions from Quarkus. For me, I just focus on MicroProfile, and this is where the stability comes. Because with the MicroProfile API, my application only knows that, and all the crazy extensions, even if they die, I don't care. Because matter of fact, I would say how many extensions are there? 200 extensions. I'm sure that not all of the extensions will survive, are going to maintain this mission impossible. So if you would like to have a stable project, you could right now focus on MicroProfile and then decide, extension per extension, is it worth, the risk? But if Quarkus itself becomes completely proprietary, which won't happen, but it could, then I would say there's no difference to anything else, right? So then Quarkus is like just another runtime. In currently special, like Glassfish was 10 years ago. The Glassfish was the reference implementation, the very compatible server. You could buy support from Sun, and it was small. It was a unique success story. It was not very well, marketed by Sun people or whatever, but it was actually an interesting, and Quarkus something similar right now.
Yeah, I think Quarkus is growing really fast.
Yeah,
and I actually have had, I've been watching MP metrics. I'm surprised when you talk about API stability, because MP metrics has been just a string of breaking changes with every version.
Yeah, but this this is a different issue, because if you think about stability in projects, the problem is something like CDI, which is very stable, because CDI is everywhere, right? So the metrics, if you have let's say per component, I have one counter. In worst possible case, it breaks it becomes not compilable, or I will have, to readjust my monitoring. but there's nothing as significant as JPA, CDI, and
For sure.
This is fault tolerance. If fault tolerance, will introduce some breaking changes, it is not that bad, I would say, because the stability comes in MicroProfile from Jakarta actually. The CDI, the JSON P, the bean validation. This is where the majority of business logic is implemented, but it's not inside the metrics, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's valid. I don't see that being a problem. It would be interesting if you have your short list of favorite extensions. It would be interesting to throw together a meta extension. Adam Bean's favorites.
In MicroProfile.
And people can just, or that. And it's just this, here's the set.
MicroProfile with a view, Jakarta, whatever. There will be another one like servlet, but this is less common. But MicroProfile is very common. So all right. I would say 80% of my project, just everything from MicroProfile.
Right. And so when are you going to start trying to use Micrometer? When I get you something to help you filter the results again? Is that the ask?
This is not about me. I'm just a consultant, so I do some proof of concepts. But if I would start with Micrometer, and I would have to create
this is right. You are consulting. You are making a recommendation to others.
Yeah.
You are having to build things out. So I'm saying, what gets Micrometer onto Adam's list?
To my list is if the conventions are crystal clear. If there is a way, I say, okay, per component, if you do this, this will happen, and this is done. This is by MicroProfile right now. Without that, component is package. So I say, if you put these annotations into this package, you get this filter, and this is this curl command, and you will see this. I'm happy. And this should be convenient and elegant. So
brilliant.
Yeah, this is all we need. And if we get to know, then it will be going to be even better than MicroProfile metrics, because in MicroProfile metrics right now, you only have the application, which is problematic because all my metrics are inside the application, which is too much.
Awesome.
But it's a similar discussion as OSGI, You were very excited about OSGI. It's like, I don't care at all.
I still wish people didn't hate on it so much. It was hard to understand, yes. But holy gods, did we get some crazy stuff working.
No, please don't combine Micrometer with OSGI. This is the only thing.
No, I would never. But like, Jigsaw was just dumb. I mean, I don't mean it in that way, but like when we were working on Liberty, the way, like the core part of how that works, you have 3 OSGI services that work together. One is declarative services, which is the cheapest, lightest weight dependency injection framework there is. The second one is configuration admin, which gives you this nice way of specifying what your allowed config is. And the third one is the magic, metatype. And you go read the spec and you're like, I don't understand what that's supposed to do. But what ends up happening with metatype, you can define the types of your config and default values. And so what ends up happening is like, you get like, it's stuff CDI doesn't understand how to do. You know how CDI always says you should get to 1 bean? Mm-hmm. Well, declarative services is like, no, you could totally have a collection of beans. So what ends up happening is if you we use config like internally, it's invisible config that nobody can see inside of Liberty. And it's how we attach JDBC drivers. Like, it is the most insane magic. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous because it says I'm going to have this config, which has this magic default value, which has this symbolic link in it, which means I pull in these services and they get injected. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's amazingly powerful and really lightweight. Yeah. But, people hate OSGI. So.
And you had a problem because you go to conferences and you are that excited, and you talk about that. And then people listen to you, come to my projects and say, look, we could have, 10 payment systems, and we could combine them, and you could pay with MasterCard on Sunday and Visa at Saturday. It's like, yeah, but unfortunately, we only have one, right? And they create, 500 OSGI bundles and plugin sets. No kidding. I don't know whether I told you this. Eclipse was very popular back then with OSGI, right? In our projects, I was the architect and expected for me to deliver lots of plugins, but I delivered only 3 because it was pointless. There was nothing pluggable in the project. But they wanted to have more, and we delivered more. And then they found out actually that the plugins could be replaced because it's plugins.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And the Eclipse RCP system, we were forced to disable the plugin manager, which back then was not really possible in Eclipse in the early versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to find a way to disable the plugins in production, which we are forced to implement because of pluggability. It's like, okay, I cannot understand it anymore. What you actually want to have, you would like to have plugins which are not pluggable or whatever. And this is why, what makes sense in Open Liberty doesn't make any sense at all in business projects, because usually there's no variations.
Oh yeah, no kidding. No, absolutely no kidding. That's right. I would completely agree with that. We
should never talk at
absolutely...
conferences about that. There should be NDA. Aaron is not allowed to talk about any pluggability modules and whatever, right?
It's so great. Yeah, no, it's definitely, this kind of stuff is really useful when you're writing the runtime for other people's stuff.
Very good. Exactly.
Yes, and it's interesting because the Quarkus extension behavior, it's the same, but it's different, and it really, it's like, but it's almost So it's funny.
In 1 year,
Wish people didn't.
I should re-invite you at least half a year to 1 year. We should talk about Micrometer.
Yeah, autumn. We'll see where it is by then. That should be good. Yeah, autumn
or winter.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Perfect.
We'll see if we're all allowed outside yet. Maybe we'll meet somewhere at a conference and we'll be able to record in person. That would be fun.
Yeah, but we never had the time. Actually, I met you once at Java 1 before pandemic. So
that's true. That was
after
funny.
Pandemic, there would be.
I've seen you. We saw each other. Just not ever for more than like a hi.
Yeah, once or twice. So I would say really is no difference if you think about this. Right? We speak more now than before.
Yes.
So, thank you. Where people can find you on the internet? So,
I'm Ebullient Works on Twitter.
Still?
And
CTO at Red Hat?
CTO, no. And Ebullient on GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it.
And what are you working on Quarkus right now?
It's all the Micrometer stuff. I'm carrying that ball for a while.
Oh, very good.
It needs care and feeding and tending. So the metric space I'm watching for now to make sure everything lands.
Small array metrics will be still available in Quarkus and Micrometer as well. And in one point of time, they will be merged or no, or not?
Not merged.
Composed,
I don't think ever merged. The question is, so like right now, Micrometer has the MP metrics layer, like adapter layer in it.
Oh.
So the question is, if and when the MP spec ends up being just an adapter for Micrometer, if that adapter layer moves.
This would make sense.
Right. And then that's all it is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
but being just dependent just on one framework is also, maybe is this the framework, but usually in Java there was never the case that we only had one, right?
Well, so right now the two extensions can't coexist.
Can't or no?
So you either have the two extensions cannot be enabled at the same time.
Okay.
Right. And so the Micrometer extension is adapting the MP metrics API that's present. And so what might happen in a future release is that we say if you still have MP metrics, then you do need to add that small RAI extension or the small RAI metrics extension, because then Micrometer will just do Micrometer, and it will be, you'd have them both.
Or you could get Micrometer extension with MP flavor or something like this, right? So it'll be
something like this. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time. It was fun.
Yeah. It is fun. It was fun. I had fun the last time we talked, which was quite a while ago. So.
Yeah, 1 year or more. Mm-hmm. And I still don't understand Dungeon and Dragons.
You don't have to. It was the most nerdy, random.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know what I was getting into when I.
Some of my friends played all the time, and I had actually no time to learn it. But recently, Lincoln Baxter. You know the guy from Red Hat? He created he was at the beginning a JBoss and I think CDI consultant, and now he has.
I don't think I've met him yet.
Startup, and what he does is, the game Magic.
Yes.
He's full into it, and he created a magic management system. And
that's awesome.
And I didn't knew that, and he sent me a link with the app. And I thought he's still somehow, involved with Java and whatever. And I tried to look at the apps, like what the app is actually doing, because there were lots of cards with wizards. And I say, concert tickets or what is it? Actually, I couldn't understand what's going on. And I asked him what it is, and he explained about the game Magic, which is also nice.
One of my friends from IBM, Rick Asowski, he's a big Magic fan.
Okay.
My dad plays Magic the Gathering. I do. This whole D&D thing, it just has kind of taken over a whole chunk of my brain.
Yeah.
There's a latent story writer back there that is now super busy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.